everybody, and welcome back to the Traitors RHAP podcast. We're here to talk about the latest episode 8 of Traitors Canada. I am, of course, your host, the Duke of Deception, Pooya and Brian, and with me is my lovely co-host, the always great but also traitorous Brian Scally. Scally, how you doing?
Oh, hello, Pooya. I'm doing great. Thank God I look snatched today. I am doing very well. I'm excited to talk about episode 8 of the Traitors Canada, one in which we got what I believe is a new twist that we have not seen in at least any of the Traitor seasons that I have seen.
Same.
So very enjoyable.
Yeah, at the very least, new in the English-speaking seasons of the Traitor. Very fun. I can't wait to discuss it with you. And, some might call this the red wedding of Traitors episodes, where we lost with a murder, May, and then with a banishment, Kuzi is the latest to leave the manor. Now, there's a lot to break down. There's a lot to go through, but just out the gate, I want to say, I think this was a very fun episode, and I think Traitors Canada is making a good case for being a top tier season moving forward.
I've been very in on it. I have enjoyed every season of the Traitors that I have watched, many for different reasons than others, but this is moving towards the top of my rankings. Look, it has been hard to find the highs that I believe UK1 had found, but Traitors Canada is putting in a very, very good bid.
They're putting in a really good shift, I think, without giving spoilers in case anyone in our audience has not watched Traitors UK season 1. It's lacking a little bit more drama than UK did, but everything else has been hitting for me, and I've been having a good time. Of course, at the top of the show, I always want to say, if you have any questions for us that you want us to answer during this podcast, feel free, if you're watching live, to drop them in the chat, and we will earmark them and come back to them by closer to the end of the show. And we will be having an exit interview. We currently are not sure with who tomorrow, because one of the two will not be able to make it tomorrow, but we will be scheduling that one later in the week. So still, if you have questions for either May or Kuzi, feel free to put them wherever you can find us, whether it's on Twitter at Pooyaism, at Brian Scally, or on Discord, Facebook, again, wherever you think you can find us, throw it in there and we'll see that and we'll go from there. Now, Scally, last week, let's rewind before we fast forward. Last week on the recap, we talked about how, we've been predicting things wrong here, and each of us picked a different prediction to run with. And this way we're guaranteed to be right. One of us is guaranteed to have one right read, and one of us is going to look like a bit of a clown. Gonna say, didn't expect it to be me, but here I am in full makeup. Hello, call me Daniel Durston, because I am a clown. Because Scally, you had the right prediction. You said that you thought Mike would outlast Kuzi, which did happen. And also, I believe you predicted May going, and I said Trevon. So
I think I predicted Leroy before I knew the preview.
You're also a clown. That makes me happy.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that they broke out this week's circus challenge for us, because all season long we have been guessing incorrectly. That's been for sure, but I could at least hold true in this one correct read of Mike overtaking Kuzi here. Really only switched up for me, I would say, last week, where I realized that I think Mike is going to be outlasting Kuzi, but for how long, I'm not sure just yet.
I don't think it's going to be for long. I think very much that Mike is the next one out the door. And we're definitely going to be talking about it, breaking down, was this the right choice or not, and where we think things are going. As things stand, of course, let's add the graphic here for everyone's viewing enjoyment. Like I just said, May was murdered to start the episode, and Kuzi was the latest banished. We are left with 6 people in the game. We have Mickey, Leroy, Gurleen, Mike, Trevon, and Donna. Mike being the sole traitor. Mike has to recruit someone, aka blackmail, because we also heard some murmurs this episode that maybe everyone had agreed to say no if they were recruited. So someone's gonna get forced to become a traitor or die, which, if anyone chooses to die and not be a traitor, I will be losing my mind and getting very mad. Scally, let's just open with this. Who is your prediction for getting blackmailed here?
Oh, it's so tough, because I don't know. I've been saying all season long, I feel like Mike needs to have another male traitor, being that we have not had one voted out of the game so far.
Yes.
So as much as I would love to see my girls Gerline and Donna be traitors, I don't think it's super likely.
It
Uh,
shouldn't be.
it should not be. Oh,
Yeah.
that's fun though. But I would have potentially said Mickey here. I just feel like he would have been a name that like theoretically you could have brought up. Maybe he's not as actively playing the game. And Trevon seems super loyal. Leroy has numbers, at least more than we've seen on TV than some of the other people. But being that Kuzi went at Mickey tonight, I think that put Mike in a very tough position, leading me back to maybe Leroy as my current pick. I don't know. I'm so torn.
So there's two options for me because I agree with you. I feel like Mickey could have been a better sell, but Mickey was the one name that Kuzi kept throwing, which I feel like a lot of people will think that, okay, so it's not Mickey. And I think there was no world where anyone was going to think Mickey anyway. So I think you look at Leroy and you look at Trevon, and I feel like Leroy is not the move because it looks like based on the next time on that Mike is moving in on Kuzi's allies in Leroy and Gerline. And I feel like in that trio, he's always third and Gerline will ride with Leroy over him. So that's a huge mistake. I think he has to go Trevon. And I feel like Trevon's the person that's going to be throwing his name out the most potentially here. And low key, Trevon could be more susceptible to being like, oh, well, I have to work with him now. We're traders, and I'm not going to like attack him potentially.
Yeah. Problem being, is Trevon also the most likely to be like, well, I'm going to leave the game because I don't want to be a traitor? Like, he's been having a tough time as a faithful. I'm a little worried about Trevon if he has to now start lying all the time.
I think that's exactly what you want if he says yes, though. If he has tough time with it, that's perfect. And also, again, not to meta game, but a male trader has not been picked out, and also someone from the civilian side hasn't been looked at in a second. We had Mel B at the very beginning, but potentially you could be looking that way. And I feel like at this point, the other factor is the whole red team versus blue team theory dies with Kuzi. They're like, oh, we caught the red team person. The other two are Leroy and Gerline. So again, unless he goes for Leroy or Gerline, but those two will always have each other's backs before his. So he will lose that battle 9 times out of 10. So we'll see.
Yeah, I agree with. I think that Trevon is the better choice. I think if you look at the long game, you have to end up as a trader. You need to end up in the final 2, usually, maybe final 3, where everyone is willing to stop the game. But being that we haven't lost any other traders, you're going to need people on your side that are willing to go to the end with you. And I just think that should you recruit Leroy or Gerline or some of these closer alliance pairs, then they're always going to be going to the end with each other instead of you. And when you get down to that final 3 and Gerline wants to keep voting, like, Mike, you're the one that's going. So I think you need to pick up the Trevons, the Donnas, maybe the Mickeys of the world, and start saying, like, we're the 4 that need to go to the end together.
Yeah, and I do think, again, ultimately all of this could be for naught because as where things stand right now, I think Mike has painted himself into a very tough corner that he's going to have to come out of moving forward, which I just quite honestly cannot see how he gets out of it. So we shall see. Now, when we first started the episode, we see Leroy and Donna come into breakfast, and they seemed very down to just let go of this team blue versus team red challenge thing that they've been following, which of course, to remind people, was the whole thing where Kuzi had the shield and then they murdered from within the red team while she was in the red team. So they started thinking, okay, there's a traitor in there. Otherwise, why would they take a shot at someone? They must know that there was a shield there. So that's what that theory was. Sounds like people were willing to let it go, Scally. So
it's hard because even if it's like, this should make sense, we know this to be true. When you're wrong so many times in a row, like, it's just defeating. And it's like, all right, let's try something else. Like, with, people will say, like, the definition of insanity is like trying the same thing over and over and not getting different results. And it's like, well, we've tried it 3 or 4 times. Like, we can't keep going at this. And it's like, well, I mean, you just haven't hit the right, person. But it makes sense as to why they would be growing frustrated with everyone focusing on it.
Yeah, so then we had Mike and Mickey walk in, and Mickey has a very funny confessional, especially for this episode, where he says he thinks him and Donna are being kept in because they're seen as gullible, and he insinuates that he's doing a good job of making it seem like he is gullible. I feel like Mickey's endgame. We talked about this at the beginning of the season somewhere that Donna and Mickey are gonna be the last two faithfuls remaining. It's more and more becoming that for me, Scally, where I could see the
That's
end being those two for sure. Lock them
and
in.
that's the problem is I feel like yes, this season was hard in that there are a lot of very active faithfuls in the game who are very set in their like convictions and they like are not easily manipulated, and then you have people who are perceived as gullible but also not as loud and likely to get banished. So it was a really hard mix of deciding whether to use a murder on someone who is less likely to get banished or is more likely to come after you. And so, for Donna and Mickey, I worked out for them. I'm not sure it was always the right decision to leave them in the game, though.
Yeah, I feel like you should have clipped them at some point because ultimately you want people that can be sussed out. And at this point, no one's going to look at Donna. And I feel like as Mickey is the one that might have a chance of being sussed, but I think ultimately now, I don't think anyone's going to bat an eye at him with what, one round table, maybe 2 round tables remaining max. So I think he survives the next one thanks to Mike. I don't know if there is another one, he might not survive that one, might get cut at the very end. So let's talk about that real quick. I do think that we're 2 weeks away from the finale. Nothing confirmed. If anyone in the chat has an eye on the schedule, has looked at what CTV is doing, let us know. But as things stand, I think next week we go from 6 to 5 with the blackmail at the beginning, banishment at the end of the night. And then the following week should be the finale where we have one last round table, go from 5 to 4, and then we have the final 4.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's my presumed, that's my presumed structure that I'm thinking. I do really, can I just say right before we get there, I prefer them to stay at the round table. I think they did that in Australia, just like the whole way through. Even if you want to put a little fire in the middle of the table, that's fine. We can do that. Just like toss it across.
Yeah.
I'd be fine with that. But I just like the visual of them all sitting around rather than standing at the fire. Okay, now, I would presume that is the right structure, and I do think that you are right in that Mike is going to have a very difficult time, and I think Mickey is definitely seeing himself in that finale.
Yeah. So then here's the thing, Scally. They chose to murder May the night before. They came down to if it's May, Kuzi says, I'm going to have a lot of heat on me. If we go Trevon, you're going to have a lot of heat on you, Mike. Why do you think they end up going May here? Why would Kuzi be willing to do this? Do you think that it boils down to she thought we can do clearly I'm getting framed because it would make 0 sense for me to go for May after all the stuff that went down here.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen multiple weeks where Kuzi says, like, oh, all right, Mike, like, you want to get out the person who said your name, like, that's risky, but if you are confident that it can work for you, like, go ahead, like, dig your own grave. And then it worked. And Kuzi could have seen that and been like, all right, like, let me take my shot at it. And unfortunately, it did not work. I think that we've talked about the value of having someone in the game who is seen as your opponent, because you know who, like, those two people are always going to be targeting. I think that if May were to go at this round table, sure, Kuzi could face a little bit of danger at the final one before, the finale, but at least she gets there, unfortunately.
And I do think that it seemed like we were going to end up being in a position where she had numbers that would at least get her to the end. Now, would she have survived the end? I don't think that. I think that ship might have sailed after the last banishment with Mel A. But ultimately, we do see here Gurleen has a confessional where she says, I've never said this out loud, but I think Kuzi's the traitor. And I thought, oh my God, we said this last week. Gurleen's playing the game. Interesting. I love this for us. This is cool. This is great. But when you look at it, I think keeping May in as a May versus Kuzi thing would have been good. But I think also maybe Kuzi thought, well, May will vote for me and I need to remove a vote that's going to be for me off the table and hope that moving forward, I can have at 4 votes to stay in. Me, Mike, Gurleen, Leroy. That's 4. I'm safe. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's potentially where she could have been looking as well.
Yeah, I do think that she probably thought she had Leroy and Gurleen's votes as well as hers and Mike's, and then boom, automatic final 4 voting there. Now, I could see taking out May as well if you are thinking I'm going to be targeting Mike next round because that's almost a guaranteed vote against her rather than, keeping people in the game who would be more willing to target
Yes.
Mike than target Kuzi. So that makes a lot of sense if that was the thought process. But being that she was actively targeting Mickey, I don't think it was.
And this was, I think, my biggest WTF question mark moment, and will be my number one question when we get a chance to talk to her, is why Mickey? Because why Mickey and not Mike? I do understand the sentiment that we've talked about this. You need to get to the end with two traitors and be the first one to strike at the second traitor at the final four so that you're in a good position. Obviously, they all know there's two traitors left. So he needs to go at some point. And she kept insinuating that she wanted to wait another round for that. I just don't see why at this stage, especially now that there's even suspicion that Mike has said your name, or you have said Mike's name and Mike is not really buying it. I think you just go for him. I think you do. I don't think you, especially if you're trying to paint a target in Mickey, I feel like it's a very hard sell.
I do agree with the Mickey target being a very hard sell. I don't agree with the targeting of Mike. I think that it kind of becomes mutually assured destruction, and I think Kuzi realized that. And unfortunately, I don't know if Mike just thought that Kuzi was kind of like unstoppable, and we just got to go along with this train and jump on before it like leaves the station. But it felt like as soon as Kuzi goes, like, then you're the number one target. If Mike goes, Kuzi's the number one target next week. Like, there was really nowhere to hide once one of them left. And so I think keeping each other in the game was still really valuable at this point. Obviously, had she known how much Mike was throwing her under the bus,
That is what I meant.
Shift.
Yeah.
Sure,
Yeah.
shift. But in terms of coming in with the strategy, Mickey's a tough choice, but I mean, I don't really know where else you go.
I think given the fact that we have seen Kuzi, like even as early as last week, react with, if you say my name, it is done and I'm coming after you. I have to imagine Mike did a really good job of not letting her know that he was coming after her. Obviously, until the round table where she is abundantly clear where Mike's going to go with all this. So I do agree with you, where if they were both working harmoniously, go for somebody. I still don't think it's Mickey. I think this is where you maybe turn the tide on Travon a little bit. If I have to pick someone, again, assuming that Leroy and Gurleen are in her corner and she's trying to keep them to the end game. Because I don't think Donna is going to work as a sell either. So I think Travon is where you have to go at that point.
Yeah, I can see a Travon sell. I do. I mean, you brought up once Kuzi hears someone is saying her name that she, might become a little fixated or just think that it's like the best move, and you generally accomplishes her goal. And we did hear her also say that Mickey was down to vote for her last week and then changed at the round table, and she was going to use that as sus. So was it just as simple as hearing Mickey's coming for me? I got to get him out right now.
If you vocalize that, I think that's a good justifiable reason for sure. We do hear also that in that same conversation where she brought that up, that Gurleen told her that Mickey was going to vote for her, and that's because there was a group of them that were going in to vote Kuzi and then changed their mind. Who's the group?
I know. I want to know.
I know. That's the mystery for us here.
Give me the gossip.
Well, if we get a chance to talk to her, we will definitely ask about it. Now, Scally, how did you feel about this challenge? Go to Podium's Corner real quick. 3 people, we have the carnival coming into town. It's a classic where 3 people are on stage with a balloon apiece, and a question is asked towards them and the panel, and then it's like, okay, who do you think is the most two-faced person? And then they all have to pick someone, and if they've picked the same as the panel, they get $500 increments for each correct guess.
I'm actually pretty fine with this challenge. I prefer it happens earlier in the season. I think it's generally going to make a little more drama. Hopefully not one person just gets like targeted the whole time, but this also kind of made it so that you can't just target one person the whole time, because as soon as they get 2 answers on them, they get dropped out. So I think this would be a really fun mechanic to try earlier in the season. Now, how it played out here, still fun, still enjoyed it. I think they employed terrible strategy, but it's fun.
Say more, Scally.
I just think, first of all, it would have been real easy to just say, like, okay, vote for the person the leftmost that has a balloon standing up there no matter what. Like, that's what we're doing, you know? Like, oh, come on. Like, before they pull us up there, I don't care what the actual, like, most two-faced, like, I don't know. Mickey, sure, like go ahead.
Mhm.
Like just vote for that. And especially when it comes down to the end and the challenge is going to end because you drop Kuzi down instead of, you know, even if Leroy doesn't think that the answer applies to the other two people that are standing up there with the balloon, well, the game doesn't end. So we get to keep going and potentially get more money. Now, if it's a fixed number of questions, that changes, but as it was played out, could have done better.
Yeah, they still managed to get $9,000, which is pretty huge here. Some of the standout questions, obviously, when Travon's on the stage and your question is who has lied the most, you knew everyone was going Travon. Like the dude lied about his job, so that could have been a more fun one, depending on who else was up there, as opposed to these Travon being there. But I think the biggest one for me, the funniest one, first of all, was which player hands down would you confidently put your life in? Which player's hands? Donna votes Mickey, and then Mickey, holding up his own name, says, I'm going with Donna. And then Gurleen looks and says, you're not going Donna, you put you. He's like, oh, I meant I agree with Don.
Look, if I have my choice, I'm going with Donna too. Wherever she goes, I am. But I think that it was super comical. Definitely a good moment from Mickey there.
I really love this weird rivalry feud thing we are getting with Gurleen and Donna. I'm very much here for it. In the question of who is least useful in traitor hunting, Donna voted Gurleen and then kind of went to justify it, paused and said, we'll talk about it later. And I was like, oh, this made it much worse and much better at the same time.
Yes. Look, I love the girls. I love when the girls fight. It's so fun. Yeah, I am here for a rivalry if we get it for sure.
I just hope that one of them doesn't take the other out at the final four and they lose out on money on a wrong one. I really hope they both win some of this money here.
That would be nice. I will say probably the question that I also made me chuckle was where it was like, who's revealed the least about themselves? And it was Mickey. It was like, yeah, as a TV viewer, that does feel correct, unfortunately, for Mickey.
Yeah, I mean, and they made sure to make that answer more true than anything by not really giving us any of Mickey for the entire duration of the show.
Yeah, I wonder if that explains his edit maybe a little more. It's still more quiet than you would like, but
yeah. So for the big question being who is the most two-faced, we had Mike throw Kuzi's name out, which to me, I thought this should have been the moment where Kuzi goes, "Oh, he's planting seeds. He's planting seeds. I can't trust them." Again, I agree with you that the move is not to go after a traitor here. So she should imagine that, yeah, no, he knows it's not good for us to split right now, so he's not going to do it. But this is where I would start scratching my head and be like, why would you say my name when Gurleen's right there? We can just say Gurleen.
But like, is anyone believing that you're authentically saying Gurleen? Like that would raise red flags with the whole cast. I feel like Gurleen, from what we've seen on the show, seems to be like a little quieter, like not really making too many waves.
You know, Donna would be like, no, you're right. She's absolutely
good job, Mike.
Yeah. Good answer. Like Family Feud.
So, and like, God forbid with one of these questions you answer yourself. Like that is not the right answer either. And Kuzi does say Mike as well. So I think it is a lack of options, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's a very fair assessment, actually, now that I think about it. And then whose behavior has changed the most since they got to the manor makes zero sense to me. Because you don't know, most of these people don't know each other. So how are you going to say whose behavior has changed?
I think they're saying like over the course of the season from the beginning to now, could be even just like pre-blindfolds coming off. But that's where I think, like you say, Gurleen, even though they both said each other yet again, that's where I think you could get away with like, Gurleen, like you were a little more bubbly and like fun before the blindfolds came off and you've been a little quieter and it's been something I've been thinking about. Like that is more reasonable.
Yeah. So $9,000 made. I agree with you. I think do this a little earlier in the season with more names so that it can inject more drama. I think we could have done this here and then done the laser maze thing now instead, like flip those two and we're fine. But hey, doesn't matter. We can move on from the challenge because the challenge wasn't the big part of the episode this time around. From here on out, we see Mike starting to plant the seeds heavy against Kuzi. really trying to throw that out there. We see him talking to Trevon, and he really tries to pull at the bond he had with Melissa A. Like, Melissa A was my person in here who I trusted, and she told me Kuzi said my name, and like I feel like she was onto something. And I feel like this was the right move to speak about specifically with Trevon to really bring him onto your side, because Trevon's someone that I feel like has been suspicious of Mike for a minute now.
Yeah, I do think that he is definitely a good ally to be picking up. Like I said, I think he needs to start picking up those Trevons, the Donnas of the world, and he's doing a good job of ingratiating himself with everyone that's left. It was very painful to be cutting between Mike like throwing Kuzi under the bus and then Kuzi being like, or Mickey, like oh no, like it was so tough. I was wondering if any of these conversations potentially happened after the twist was revealed, and maybe that little bit of money might have shored up the throwing under the bus that may not have happened otherwise.
Interesting. So
Just wondering. I mean, it's tough to say because it does feel like with it being a little later, it being dinner, like I do think that like time of day wise, if I go back, probably most of these conversations are happening outside, so you could still place them. But I'm just wondering if Mike was so set on Kuzi before there was a bounty on their heads, or if that $10,000 could have made this a little more appealing.
All right, so I am seeing Scally breaking news. Season finale is December 4th. So we were right on the money. So the finale will be 2 weeks from now, which makes sense, lines up with everything we're putting out there. So that we will be live for that to talk about that Monday night on the heels of potentially, both of us being in a whole other state, hanging out the day after. So who knows?
Yeah. So we'll be figuring that one out.
Yeah, we'll figure out what our schedule is, what the RIP sleep before flights, but whatever.
Yes.
Oh God. Oh my God. I'm gonna be so panicked and not sleeping. Anyway, that's 2 weeks Pooya from now problem, not right now. Okay, so Mike makes a lot of listen, here's the thing. I think Mike played this episode flawlessly. If the objective was to get Kuzi out, I think he did it flawlessly. Did he do it flawlessly to win the whole thing? I'm not sure about, but I think bringing up the 911 operator thing was great. I think maintaining not saying I'm suspicious of Kuzi, really making it seem like, hey, Melissa A was suspicious of Kuzi, and I ride with Melissa A like you do. We are both Melissa A warriors. We need to avenge Melissa A. I think that was huge for him, because ultimately it's not coming from him directly either, and it's not looking like he's pushing too hard.
Yeah, I think that he played it really well in general. I do have a little bit of a worry of him really pushing on like how much he trusted Mel A and being like, I trusted her so much. Like, well, then why did you flip on her for cruising? And like, that is still a question that I would have, being anyone else in the game. But it in general was really good. We do leave with some conversations like Leroy and Trevon being like, yes, okay, I agree. Like Kuzi is who we should be targeting. Mike has convinced us. I'm like, Mike's still our number 2 suspicion here.
Exactly. Mike is next. Yeah. Now, here's the thing for me, and take notes, future Traitors players of any franchise. If someone walks up to you and says, I am so confident that it's this person, if I'm willing to put myself in banishment way if I'm wrong or if I'm right, whatever, they're a traitor. Just no one is that blindly confident. It's either they're a traitor or incredibly stupid. So either way, avoid them or get rid of them if you can.
It's also interesting for like, I am willing to get banished. And it's like, well, if you were targeting a traitor, aren't you more likely to get murdered? Like, or is just murder not a possibility for you for some reason? So I don't think that most people are going to pick up on that, but it was just something I was thinking of, is like, well, why would this get you banished? Like, if you were correct, I mean, I guess if you were wrong, I'm sure people are going to be a little more suspicious of you. But I don't know. I think it seemed like he was putting himself too far out there for that to be a possibility.
Yeah, my toxic trait is having watched and dissected all of the Traitors franchises now, and thinking that I would know all the ins and outs and be able to read people like anything, and then I go in there and I'm Mickey. Like, that's really where my legacy could go, because I think I could be very good, but at the same time, I feel like a lot of it goes out the window once you make connections and you're looking people in the face.
Oh, I know I'd be bad, so it's fine. Like I would be having fun, and I would try to like be personality, but like that's all I got. Let me be a traitor. I could be good at that.
Yeah. So then, all right. Now, here is the next bit that we have to talk about, Scally. And that is, again, a lot of people were very willing to move past the red theory thing. Even Trevon said, my suspicions are Kuzi number one if I'm going by way of the red theory. Otherwise, it's Mike. What do you think finally got people to switch up on it?
I don't know. It's tough. I think it's when you are just going at the same theory over and over. It's a little tough to keep people convinced on there. And so people are just growing a little tired.
Again, if you go after that team and you've got what, 3 of them out and they're all been good, then yeah, what's like, let's just stop this before we regret it. Especially if I'm Leroy and Gurley and I'm like, whoa, now let's just move on, please. For the love of God, let's just get out of here with that.
Yeah, I think that is unfortunately, it's just, you get proven wrong so many times and it becomes defeating rather than it becoming like we're getting closer. Like it just feels like you're getting further away.
Okay, so then we've already talked about what's it called? We've already talked about Kuzi throwing out Mickey's name. However, we do see a moment where Mike says, I'm going to go talk to Kuzi and fish for info so I can use it against her at the round table. You are a menace, sir. This is menacing, but I do love this. I do love this as a strategy of like, listen, let me prime everything up, get as much information as I need to use against her later on.
Yep, I think that people should definitely be trying to get as much information out of these players before they go home, like as they can, regardless. And Mike knows, like, all right, I'm targeting Kuzi. Like, let me get the last little bit out of her that I can. From what we see here, it's mostly that she's targeting Mickey, and I almost wonder also if it's like, all right, like. Kuzi doesn't have a better plan. Like I can't go with her. Mickey doesn't seem like a realistic target, so I just gotta go for it tonight. I can't like jump with her on Mickey.
And that's the thing, to be fair. I feel like if he leaves, because I think leaving this conversation, he had to have known that she is fully riding with him. And because to me, continuously throwing out Mickey, giving him all of this information about both, yeah, Mickey said all these things, and also Gurleen told me that they were trying to vote me, but then they switched their minds, to all the way to him saying, do you want me to open up questioning about you at the round table? And she said, absolutely not. Because then if you do that, the way I approach it is I answer the question by answering that question right back. And I don't want to fire on you. And I don't want this to be a whole debacle. I don't want to do that. I feel like he leaves that knowing, okay, she's definitely not voting me and definitely wants to vote Mickey. However, if we go for Mickey and it doesn't land, that's 2 votes. That's 5 other people. I very well could be on people's lips probably still after next time, and I'll probably go, I cannot let that happen, which I think is fair. I think it's fair to then look that way. But then when we get to the dinner, Scally, when we get to the twist later, I think once this offer is on the table, you have to take a traitor out in a way. You really do.
Ooh, you think that Mike's decision is made for him? Like he couldn't just eat it's basically a $20,000 net, like loss or gain, like like $20,000 is on the line because you are, but also you're gaining the $10,000, but you're not losing the $10,000. So traders math, it's $20,000 on the line.
Yeah, well, yeah. So let's talk about this little twisty twist we got here. So Kareem comes up to the grounds and says, "Hey, everyone, dress up nice. I've got a little feast ready for you. We're gonna be having a feast by the terrace, and it's not black tie, but dress nice." So they dress nice. Everyone shows up, shows out, snatched, ready to go, and we sit at the feast. And first of all, Kuzi's not eating anything. And Scally, remember there was a feast on her Big Brother Canada season? I can't help but feel like she kind of felt a little scarred by this.
Oh yeah, the PTSD is real. She is not going into this feast.
Nope, not eating anything. I would have loved if Corinne came out and said, yeah, those of you who ate already, penalty vote or something for her to be vindicated. But I also, part of me got worried and thought, oh my God, please don't tell me there's a twist with this, because if there is, they might think she knows something and vote her out. So
Exactly. I was
yeah.
like a little worried of allegations that would be made towards the show if it was like, oh, well, because you all were so indulgent and ate, you are the only ones up for elimination tonight. I was like, oh no, like that would be not good.
Rigged. The show is rigged
Yeah.
against. Yeah, no, thank you. So here is what the twist entailed for anyone that didn't get to watch the episode. Here we go. So tonight, there will either be a banishment or a murder. You get to decide. The twist being, if everyone unanimously agrees to a banishment, then we go to the round table. You banish, but there will be no murder tonight. But if one of you chooses murder, there will not be a round table. There will only be one murder, and the traitors get to decide who gets murdered, basically. Additionally, to sweeten the pot, so to speak, there is a 10K bonus if you vote out a traitor. There is a 10K penalty if you vote out a faithful. So choose wisely. Scally, what do you think the producers want in this moment? What do you think is their ideal outcome here?
They want a banishment. I think that the banishments are more interesting in general. I think that they make for better TV with everyone debating and sitting around the circle rather than like, okay, here's a little clip at the beginning and end of the show where we talk about who's going to get murdered. Still fun, still interesting. But I think the banishment is more exciting. I think this is a fun twist. I do have a potential suggestion.
Please.
I'm wondering, okay, because when I was watching this at first, I thought they would probably cast their votes in secret, may have anonymous votes, and so then you could actually have it be like a real question of is this going to be like unanimous or not? Because I don't think a traitor is going to put themselves out there in front of the group and say,
no, they shouldn't.
Yeah, and I don't think a faithful is going to do it either out of fear of being like seen as a traitor. And I think that there's a possibility that someone could potentially say like let's just do a murder because like I don't think I'm gonna get murdered, and also like I don't want to risk the money and yada yada yada, or like oh like I know Kuzi's a traitor but I want to keep her here till the end so I don't want to risk that money, etc. So I wondered if there's a way where you could have it be anonymous, and then only being that it's anonymous you could really only count the votes of the faithful. So it's like the faithful are the ones, because obviously if it's anonymous, the traitors are going to say they want to murder because they don't want the risk of going home.
Is it obvious, Scally?
I think so. Do you think there's a world in which a traitor should be saying, if it's anonymous, that they want a banishment?
So to me, it felt like Mike wanted this move to happen here right now, no matter what. I really do think that. But I think Kuzi would have taken murder easily, but I don't know if Mike would have.
I think Mike should. Well, first of all, I guess then there's no world in which two traitors want to both, avoid a murder. But because it was only one, it didn't need to be majority or anything else. But I also think that if Mike could have delayed this move one round and gotten out a faithful, like hands clean, still come back in and get Kuzi next round, then I think that maybe he takes that opportunity as well.
I do think that's a good argument to make, Scally, because I do agree with you there. If he's done enough to pile on to Kuzi, he gets an extra bonus pass, basically, of instead of doing banishment then murder, he would just do murder then banishment. It's kind of like a reverse the order, and you still get someone out. And at that point, you get someone out that then I guess you discuss who you want voted out there. So,
well, I mean, because this way now it's banishment then banishment. Like he can still go in this next round. He was not immune for either of the two, which he would have been had he said that he wanted to murder. So I still think it's unlikely that both traitors or either traitor say anonymously that they want to murder. So I thought if you get the faithfuls behind closed doors, I think it's still likely that they say they want to go for a banishment, but at least it's more of a decision because this feels like it was made for them.
Yeah, I do think this was made for them as well. And I think that, again, the easiest decision when it has to be a public vote is to just be like, yeah, no, we want more money. And obviously we could be wrong, but I think even if it was 20,000, I think the move is to, well, if we don't try and take out, the only thing as faithful you can do to get rid of a traitor is to go to the banishment and to the round table. So if you skip the round table, there's no sense in being there, because you're basically saying, I bless me with a murder, because you're gonna guarantee take out a faithful. Whereas this way, there's at least they know there's 2. So a 2 out of 7 shot that we land a traitor and all of us can sleep without getting murdered tonight. So you 100% take it no matter what.
Yeah, so I think that's an interesting twist. I just think that there probably could be work to make it a little more of a choice.
Yeah, I think so. I think maybe anonymous should be the move, but count the votes of the faithfuls instead, because assuming again the traitors are always going to go for the murder.
And I think that the faithfuls will often go for the banishment, but that seems to be what they want anyway. It just like makes it an actual choice.
Yeah. I think, okay, because I feel like, for example, let's pretend that your format, Scally's special, Scally format is happening. It's anonymous. We're only going to count the vote of the faithfuls. Do you think there's someone in here that would have said murder? And who do you think that would be? Because I think I have a name in mind.
Ooh, okay. I'm looking through. What do you think? You tell me, because I do not have a name in mind.
So I think we're gonna have to discuss this later on as well, based on her voting confessional. I think Gurleen would go murder. I think Gurleen feels secure in that Kuzi's not gonna take her out, and I think that Gurleen only votes out Kuzi here because if she votes Mike, it's suspect. If they don't have the votes. And being part of the majority is the move for her ultimately. I think there's no point trying to put your neck out for a traitor if they end up leaving anyway, and now you get voted out right after.
Yeah, I think that is very possible. And so I think that, like I said, it makes it an actual choice. It makes it probably harder to produce the show where you're like, I'm not really sure how this episode's going to end. But and we have to like adjust it on the fly. But I think it's probably more fun in theory.
Well, I think Gurleen's the only one. And even that, I'm not saying it's 100%. I think it's like a 50-50 at best or something.
Yeah, I do think that there are other seasons, though, where, like, let's say May's here. I think there's a world in which she's like, well, everyone's talking about getting me out tonight. Like, I'm going to take my chances with a murder because, like, if I go to banishment, I know I'm going home tonight. So, not necessarily May anyway, but I think that someone like a May or others.
I think if you did this twist, not necessarily earlier because that's too many people, but if you had a Rick here, if you had a Colin here, someone who was so clearly going to get banished that they were like, well, screw y'all, I'm not letting you do that to me. Let's go murder. I think that's the only way you get an outcome that isn't just let's take the gamble on the vote anyway. Because
I think you could also have like a Mary who's like, I just don't want to do another roundtable. Like,
Can we
someone.
Skip it. I need sleep. Because you're guaranteed if you're going to go for the murder. But I feel like ultimately, Scally, I don't think there's enough done here to ever make anyone switch their mind, because whether I'm right or wrong at the roundtable, as long as it's not my name that gets banished, I get to sleep easy knowing I'm making breakfast tomorrow. I have to worry about is, am I first in for the fresh coffee and the fresh food or no?
I agree. I think that it is 90% of the time they are going with the banishment, but I think 100% of the time they are going with the banishment here.
Yeah, exactly. But I did like it. It was a bit of intrigue added in. It's something new. I very much celebrated when Traitors New Zealand added some new stuff. I'm celebrating it here. I love when they start adding their own things to the franchises as well. And without testing new things, you're not going to know if something's going to work or not to introduce it into the game. So I'm happy about it.
Agreed. So it was fun. I did see pointed out in the chat that they did change their outfits for the dinner, so that most of the conversations did in fact happen on the timeline they were shown. So very good catch by the chat. And yeah, I think that it was funny when they showed up and they were like, Kareem, like, we're waiting for you to start eating. It's like, guys, look at the wardrobe, she's been eating. But otherwise
nice.
Otherwise very fun.
I loved Mickey essentially saying, sorry we started without you. She was like, oh, I'm not eating here. You enjoy the scraps. I'm good. I had a great meal earlier. So we get to the round table here, and Mike is so clearly stressed about what he's about to do. He knows it's going to be a tough task, but I did feel sad now in hindsight when Kuzi's opening confessional is, I don't want myself to go, and I think it's too soon for Mike to go. I need Mickey gone. And Mike does what he offered, but Kuzi rejected, which was, do you want me to open by asking you a question? No? Well, I'm going to do it anyway. And immediately starts firing at Kuzi here.
This was tough. This was really tough because Kuzi said blatantly, I don't want this to happen. And so as soon as he starts, she knows he's against her, that this is coming her way. And so for Kuzi, like, if it's going bad, I'm going to go hard at Mike. I am petty. I am going to bring you down with me. I am not going to, be like, it would be a real shame if like the other person that was targeting me was also a traitor. I'm not doing that. But like, I am going to destroy your game with mine, like as much as I can.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very tough spot to be in because for Kuzi, unlike Mike had the whole day to plant seeds and get people on side and have these one-on-ones where he was able to both throw her name out and further fuel her name if anyone else said it first. Whereas Kuzi does not have that benefit. She's starting from scratch at the round table, which is a hard feat. Now, obviously, she survived a vote. She can do it again, no doubt. But this is a very tough battle to have because Mike is asking very leading questions, which again, there are definitely arguments she could have made right then and there, but I don't know if she's going to remember these points. We only do because I have 7 pages of notes over 40 minutes of footage. And I would have been like, well, remember Crystal called them out for like going ahead and like bringing up a whole list for Melissa B, right? When Melissa B was going to get banished, he's doing the exact same playbook. He clearly knows more than he's letting on. Also when he was like, well, who are your allies here over here? And she was like, are you pointing? Are you telling me who my allies are? And she answers back to him. I do feel like there were moments where it could have seemed like she had below the belt hits on him, which I think were not received well.
Yeah. I don't know. I think honestly, because he could have gone harder. And I think that Mike could have too.
So.
I think that we've seen Kuzi go harder, is the thing. I think she's gone harder at people in other roundtables than this. And so I think that Mike probably got off lucky, but at the same time, he also could have, she said, when I get accused, I turn the question around on them. I don't answer it. And I say this. And Mike very well could have just been like, what you're doing right now is you're turning the question around on me. And it's like, she told you what she's going to do. Use that against her. So maybe he did, and we didn't see it. But I think that they both left a little bit on the table.
Yeah. When she said, well, who are your friends, Mike? Mike said, well, I'm a neutral player. Like I'm connecting with Leroy now some more in the last couple of days. And she said, well, that's interesting. Now when you need him, which is very valid, Grant, mind you. But then Donna's like, no. He's been making connections. He's made connections with me. I was like, Donna, no. Donna, say he hasn't, please. Trevon. So this is the interesting one for me. This is where I feel like Kuzi could have steered it towards Mike, but didn't take the shot. Trevon brings up that, Kuzi, you're looking suspicious because May is gone, but you could have been set up. I think people think here that you could have been set up. Now, who do you think is the person who could have done this to you, who could have framed you? I think this is where, do you have any theory on who is setting you up and their motive? This is where you say, I think it's Mike. I think it's Mike because Mike is able to both hide that he's murdered May, make it seem like it's me. Also, Mel A said my name. She's gone. It's a very easy way to make it seem like, well, the last couple of people that said my name are now gone, and I'm the one who did it. I think you say that, and then you say, well, why would that be the motive? You say, okay, well, here's why. Because anytime someone has began being suspicious of him, they have gone. Gurpyar was suspicious, gone. Kevin, suspicious, gone. And Mary, suspicious, gone. And I have started thinking it's him, and I brought it up, and now this is happening. Because I brought it up in the car with, whoever. You can just be like, at that point, just fully go that route and be like, this is what I think is happening. And that's why I think he's opening with me. It's such a tough spot to be in because if ultimately, again, it's so easy for us to speak on it, having watched it on the show and just watching it from the sidelines. If I'm in the moment and I'm coming into this roundtable fully thinking Scally's we're working together. Scally and I are trying to get through one more vote. We're going in, we're throwing out Chappelle's name. It's going to be easy. and then you start questioning me, I will be blindsided. I will be angry. And honestly, I will be a little off my game because I've not had enough time to figure out how I'm going to unravel you right then and there.
It's hard. I think often the best move in theory is not going for the person that's targeting you. Like for Kuzi, I think that the argument of like we've seen this time and time again. Like someone tried to set up Donna by taking out I don't remember. I don't remember exactly which week, but like someone tried to set up Donna, someone tried to set up like multiple people in this game. They've done it to Mike, they've done it to whoever, and I think that's what they're doing to me here. And like they have a pattern, and so it has proven to be false multiple times over. Donna, unless you're a traitor and you want to like admit it now, like I think that they are doing the same thing. I don't actively think it's Mike. I think he is misguided, but the problem being Mike is the only other person at this roundtable, at least in the edit, who is being very loud and very active. So the attention is always going to be on Mike and always going to be on Kuzi. So in everyone's minds, it really does become the like, me or them. Like that is it. There is only one other option. And opening up to a third is often going to take your agency away because people are not going to like follow you on that train.
Yeah. Now, Scally, we both know you're a very petty human being, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So you are now seeing the writing on the wall. You're Kuzi in this instance. And you're like, this guy, this magician, he's about to take me out the game. What are some things you can say to paint him as a target without obviously doing the outright?
Yeah.
Like Mike's the other person, like, because you obviously can't do that. How would you subtly try and plant evidence on Mike on the way out at the round table?
It's hard because I think that Kuzi did do a good job. I mean, she gave the reasoning that like things actually happened. You can say like you've been pushing, and she could even say like you've been pushing the red team, like knowing that you were on the blue team and you were safe, and like using other people, yada yada yada, and so not actively throwing him under the bus. Like I would never be in there and say like, oh yeah, well I'm a traitor and he's the other one too. Like that's never what I'm doing. But like if I know all like the intricacies of your game better because I'm a traitor and you're using the intricacies of my game against me because you also know mine because I'm a traitor, then I'm gonna do the same thing back to you. Like whether that works here, awesome, that's my goal. But like I'm not leaving there with anything in the pocket. Like everything is getting pulled out. I think that Kuzi did do a good job. I think it's tough. Do you have anything in mind?
I think at this point, because obviously I'm with you where if I'm getting backstabbed, I understand that it's a game. I'm still going to be a little upset that you beat me to the punch. And I'm going to try and make it a little hard for you on the way out. Because again, you want to beat me? I think I've played the best. Earn it. Do a little more, right? I think this is where you start throwing grenades at other people and be like, this is so confusing to me, Mike, because you came to me today and you said, so we're voting out Mickey, right? That's what we're doing. And you just fully gaslight. You fully gaslight. You make it seem like, no, you said Mickey because you said that, Mickey's kind of been floating around, not saying anything. He's acting stupid on purpose and blah, 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 blah. Because then he has to deny that, obviously. He's going to try and deny, be like, no, you said that. It's like, I most definitely did not say this. I think that's the best way you can go about it is to start just, again, throwing out lies and doing enough gaslighting where maybe it wakes a couple people up to look at Mike regardless. And ultimately, when the votes did happen, Scally, so 2 people voted for Mike. It was Kuzi and Trevon. Everybody else voted for Kuzi. And Kuzi's vote on Mike, based on the next time on, could have maybe made people guess that Mike is the other because she wrote down Mike with 3 exclamation marks. Scally, what does to exclaim mean? Be a little shocked?
Possible. Yeah, I don't know. It's for emphasis. It's tough because in terms of saving yourself, if you have caught different things because you know what to be looking for. So if Mike has said a bunch of things that like raise red flags for you because like that he is exposing something that he only knows because he is a traitor, and then you're pulling it out now, and then I think there's a lot of people that are gonna be like, well, if you had all of this, why did you hold on to it? And why are you now just telling us? So like you could successfully ruin Mike's game, but I don't think you're saving yourself that way. In terms of the final vote, I do think that people are probably still going to be suspicious of Mike, but I think that has a lot to do with his name already being very much on people's radar. I think that if this was a one-time thing for Mike, I think that having the vote on Mike and being so against him could actually be a good thing for him. But the lack of other targets is really what I think is going to do him in.
Yeah, I do agree with that wholeheartedly as well. And I feel like ultimately, again, I think Mike did a good job of surviving the night and being the last traitor, OG traitor standing. But I do think made the path to the end a lot harder for himself. Because while I do think that, maybe you thought, okay, Kuzi has this alliance of Gurleen and Leroy, because I think he had figured out who they were at this point as well. I think that he, if you think a step ahead, you're like, okay, if they think she's the traitor, they'll vote her, they'll banish her because they'll be like, well, you're our friend, but we don't trust you. So maybe I go to the end with them. That's not so bad. He made the move. It's done now. It is done. Kuzi does leave. Kuzi gets up and says, like Scally said at the opening of the show, well, thank God I'm snatched tonight and ready to be standing here. She does say, it's been a pleasure meeting everyone. I thought very classy exit here. She says, unfortunately, you do lose me tonight, even though I've been killing in this game, literally killing in this game. But tonight you win $10,000 and everyone loses their mind. Mickey doesn't get out of his seat, though.
It's so tough. So first of all, great exit line. Good job,
Absolutely.
Kuzi. Love it. I love the drama. I love the the pun a little bit. You could say there. Very good. I liked it a lot. Now I did notice Mickey not jumping out. I will say very good job on Mike. He looked genuinely like shocked, enthused, like very happy. I think that's really hard to pull off. And I was like watching for any tells. Didn't see him. Think he did a really good job. As for Mickey, there is a world in which this is read as, why weren't you as excited as everyone else? And I think that's like the layer one of strategy. I think most people will probably look at it and think that, but being that Kuzi was going against him especially, and also I think that there is a very good argument of, okay, yes, Mickey was not as excited, but like was probably the most genuine in his reaction, like was not putting it on in a way, and so he doesn't feel the need to because he is not a traitor, and therefore his reaction is actually good, question mark.
Yeah. It's literally impossible to tell because we can go into next episode and it could either be Mickey is a real one or Mickey was suspicious as hell for not jumping or someone else was suspicious. So it really comes down to who are you looking at, what's going on. Shall we get into some questions here?
Ooh, I would love to.
Okay. If you have any questions you want to ask, again, you can feel free to throw them in the chat here if you're watching live. I have earmarked a couple of these already. So let's go with this one first. Up and Adam says, Gurleen said she wanted to keep Kuzi right before she votes against her. Edabrain is telling me this is a losing move, but would Gurleen voting for Mike have been worse here? I, again, maintain that I think she truly wanted to keep Kuzi, because why else would she have not told anybody that she thinks that's the case? I think you can't do it once you know where the tide's going. Once you can tell where Leroy's headed, I think that's when you know, all right, this ain't happening. I got to jump off this here and just vote her out.
Yeah, I think Leroy would get a little spooked by the vote going in like a direction that he didn't expect there, because it does seem like they are definitely the closest as far as we can tell. It has seemed that Leroy has gotten, not super trusting of some of his alliance mates when they acted, out of character, in his opinion. So I think that that is probably the right move for Gurleen. Now, from an editing perspective, I can understand it being like, oh, look at Gurleen being wrong. More so, it for me was, look at Gurleen playing the game and look at her having this foresight in the game. And I'm wondering if potentially that could lead to a like, well, I know, also next time I learn that Mike is definitely a traitor and I decide to keep him in, and we're setting up for why we might make that decision instead.
Okay. Now we have a question here that I want to ask you, but it's a question that I want to ask after I ask a couple of my own to you.
Ooh.
Now that we know that the finale is in 2 weeks and that you've had one prediction right,
Oh no.
I want more predictions, Scally. So first of all, who do you think is getting blackmailed next week?
I don't know. You put in a really good argument for Travon.
But don't listen, I've been wrong, so maybe you don't trust me.
Yeah, that is tough. I I'm gonna go with let's go Gurleen. I think Gurleen is going to be stepping up to the big leagues. I think she's getting in Traitors Tower. I think that maybe we're showing she's actively playing the game, and she is going to be actively playing the game from the other side, taking out Mike, taking it into her own hands, and winning as the traitor on her own.
I did see in the next time on when he was talking with Leroy and Gurleen, the way he was talking led me to think potentially Gurleen could be the one he is blackmailed to bring in. I just feel like it's such a bad, like, wrong move for him to bring in someone who has Leroy as a ride or die that you're never going to dive into and split up. I think you go with either Travon or Mickey. I know I made a good argument for Travon. I think there is a universe where Mickey is also potentially blackmailed here. And I think you brought up a decent argument about Travon. Mickey could get blackmailed because he didn't stand up. So he didn't stand up. Great. Let's put sus on the fact that he didn't stand up. So one of those two is probably where I would go. And at this point, I feel like Mickey is where I'm going to land. Even though I did put out that argument for Travon. Because this is how I win, Scally. Because either it's Travon, I'm like, well, I said it. Or it's Mickey and I picked it.
Yeah, you did name the whole cast, so I guess you would be right.
I didn't say Donna.
Sure, please.
So
that's just my wishful thinking. But I think Mickey could make sense, even from an editing perspective, of like, all right, here's the real start of Mickey's game. So like we've been hiding him, but here
the
he
start
comes.
of Mickey's game, episode 9.
I mean, look, it is a whole different game that he's playing. Like, his game as a faithful, you don't need to worry about that. That's irrelevant. He becomes a traitor. Now, this is where the game really starts for Mickey. He takes out Mike, he masterminds the end, and that's Mickey's winning story.
Oh my God. What a story that would be. Speaking of winning story, the next question I had for you is one that was asked by someone in our chat. I believe it was Nathan, who said prediction for the final 4.
That's so hard.
I mean, yeah, we're literally liquidating 2 people off of the cast to get there.
I think I'm looking at Mickey, Leroy, Gurleen, and Donna. Like Mickey and Donna being kept around because they are quote unquote a little more like naive and gullible, and then Leroy and Gurleen having the stronger relationship in the house. We've talked about how we think that maybe Mike is going to be taken out next because he was the next biggest target, even at this roundtable. And Travon being a potential target that could be thrown out there has also been discussed. So I think that would be my guess on the final 4, but I don't feel confident.
Well, I mean, in that final 4, I'm assuming this is where you're saying Gurleen is the traitor. In this final 4.
Sure. or Mickey, but yeah, Gurleen.
Yeah, I think that's a very safe 4. I feel like looking at the 6 people remaining, Travon's the only person I can't picture at the final 4 at this point, just based on everything we have seen. And Mike, just if he gets to the final 4, color me impressed, because I just can't fathom it right now. But if he's there, more than kudos. I think if he gets there, it's on the back of Leroy and Gurleen being like, all right, he's bad. Let's just cut him at the final 4. Yeah. So that's where I'm headed, but I think Donna and Mickey, again, everything the narrative is telling us is lock these 2 with Penn for the final 4. Something wild needs to happen for them to be the ones out, because I do think now that we believe the finale to be December 4th, I don't think we have another murder now. I think the murders are done. Absolutely done. So Donna can't get murdered. Mickey can't get murdered. The only way they're out is through banishment, and I don't see it unless somehow Kuzi being confirmed as a traitor makes them somehow land on, well, she was saying Mickey, and I feel like she was doing it because she was desperate to not go out, and Mickey's her teammate. Let's go, Mickey. I don't see it happening otherwise.
Yeah, I do have a question. Do we know how the final four would play out if there's a tie? I don't feel like we've had that explored at all.
Okay, so if it's if they're doing the same traditional thing that Traitors does, well, which if you're new, check this out. So they stand around a fire pit thing, and they each have two bags with them or two rocks with them. One of them puts out a green flame, one puts out a red flame. If you put out a green flame, you're claiming that you don't want to vote and you think all the traitors are gone. If you do red, you think that there's a traitor among us, you have to vote. Even one red flame will cause a vote. And you're saying that they vote at 4 and it's a 2v2. Two people vote, two people vote.
To be honest, I don't really remember how tie votes work in general, other than just a revote. But that's my worry for Leroy and Gerline is there a world in which it's better to take Mike to that final four because obviously the third person will vote with us for Mike rather than you bring Mickey and Donna and it's like, well, we can't go to the final three with Leroy and Gerline. We got to hold true in this final four 2v2 and see what happens. So
I feel like if you 2v2, then the two that don't have votes should be able to discuss and just pick one to go out. I think that should be the move. Because I feel like that's the most fun way to go about it. I think doing any random chance stuff would be awful. And I think a revote, unless they all get a chance to talk, all 4 of them, and then revote could be a shout. But I think just make it be the 2 people that don't have votes, quickly talk and be figure out what they're doing.
Yeah, I'm very interested because I do think that there is a world in which you get to a total deadlock, and I think that is very interesting. And why I think that carrying Mike a little further in the game could be very valuable for an alliance of 2.
I think getting Mike to the end is the best move because he is, as of right now, the most likely person to receive any votes ahead of yourself. So yeah, I think that's the correct move. This is interesting. So next week we will have a blackmail, aka a new traitor, and then a banishment. And then the following week we will have a banishment and the final 4 ceremony. So I wonder how the episodes are going to get filled out because we're not going to have the Traitors Manor, assuming.
They manage. This is pretty regular. There's never a murder on the final episode. We're going to have the recruitment still. So we'll get that segment at the beginning of Mike debating the person coming in. Them, should I join? I'm not sure. Should I just leave the game for no reason? And then the final will be the final challenge and the final 5 vote out. And then they move to the fire pit. And then,
yeah. Okay. Now here's a question I'm going to ask you. How many people do you think are going to leave with money this season?
I think it's 2. I think we're having a faithful win.
Okay. You think we're going faithful win at this point? Because here's the thing, Scally. Here's the interesting part of this twist. They're coming into this breakfast upcoming now, knowing that there was not going to be a murder. Do you think they're going to be told someone was recruited last night or no? Because if they're not, they're going to assume there's only one traitor left.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, my take on the game has always been there have to be 2 traitors at the penultimate episode because you cannot have a world in which the traitor is voted out in, the final episode, and then you go to the finale and there's no traitors there and there's no suspense and there's nothing.
Can we stop real quick? Because I think there's a world where you can have that be fun anyway.
Could you? Sure.
Yeah.
Will they? No.
No, they won't. But I think it's so funny if we went to the final 5 with all faithfuls because they voted out Mike and now they have to second guess themselves okay, is this it? Is this all of us? Because it's basically what the game is at the final 4 anyway, just with, fun fact, there are no more traitors left. So it's just a matter of how many of them are going to keep voting each other out until there's money.
Yep. So I think that is in theory, very fun. Could be really funny to watch them being we have to keep voting because we haven't found a traitor. And they're just voting out their friends for no reason. Interesting. You get down to the final 2 and they're just terrified because they think they lost the money.
And every time they vote someone out at the fire pit, you have them stand in the corner and watch the rest of it play out. And then at the end, Karine says, all right, Gerline, Leroy, congratulations. You're both faithful, but so are those 2 that you just voted out. You were all faithful and they don't get any money. and now they're all shocked and bewildered. They're heartbroken. Listen, book it. It's good drama.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm Leroy and Gurley and I'm like, yay, I still get more money. Like, I did want to vote them out
I don't
anyway.
care.
Yeah, like, sorry, I feel bad, but like, not that bad. I'd still make the same decision. So I think it could be interesting, but I just know from a producing standpoint, it would never ever happen. So if I am there personally, knowing that there are going to be at least 2 traitors in that episode, regardless of
Mhm.
if there were 2 traitors the night before.
I think at this point, the strongest allegiance, the strongest friendship in the house is Leroy and Gurleen. So personally, I think that is the best outcome, is to have one of them get blackmailed this upcoming week. Because if they get to the end and they fully trust each other, I want that face drop moment when the other realizes that it wasn't the case. I really feel like that's the best possible ending if we're going for a Traitors win here. Because otherwise, I do agree with you. I feel like this is officially now the Faithful's game to lose.
Yeah.
The tide has shifted.
That's how I feel. That's what I think is probably the case. Oh, it'd be so fun to get down to a final 2 with one traitor, one faithful. So
The dreams are made of, Scally.
definitely something on my radar. But I think that even if, like, let's say Gurleen and Leroy don't, like, none of them get recruited and they get out Mike and they go to the final 3 with Donna, like, are you still voting out Donna there? Like, I could see there being 3 people winning, but I think that currently my suspicion is I think Leroy and Gurleen are in that end game, and it's a matter of, was one of them recruited? Are they with another faithful? Like, have they already gotten out 2 traitors? Like, that is
Well,
where I'm looking at.
if they get to the final 4, and let's just use Mike because that's the easier exercise with Mike being a known traitor at this point. And they vote out Mike, and it's Leroy, Gurleen, and Donna, I assume the game ends right there, right? They say, congrats, all the traitors are gone. Or if they push for an extra vote, I think 100% you clipped on. And no matter how you feel, you again get more of the prize pot split amongst you and your friend. 100% you clipped on, and no matter what.
I think that is, in theory, the correct move, but I think that there have been lots of people on, this season and many other seasons of the Traitors who are very happy to split the money and only vote for as many votes as necessary. So I can see a world in which, theoretically 3 people win together as the Faithfuls.
I think it depends, because I feel like ultimately, if let's say it's me, you, and a person we're not that close to, I feel like I can confidently push for a vote knowing that, okay, well, Scally won't vote me and I'm not voting Scally, so we're fine. Whereas if I'm if I'm not as connected to the other 2, yeah, I'm like, let's just not vote because they might vote me out and I don't want to risk that.
Yeah, but we're cutthroat,
depends.
and I don't know that all these people are.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I said earlier, my toxic trait has been like, I would stab in the back so easy. Like, Donna, bye-bye, money's mine now. In reality, I'd be looking, I'm like, this money is like life-changing for all of us. And by life-changing, I mean, might not be like too life-changing because not like a lot, but it's still decent money. And I'm like, I don't know if I can look you in the face and steal it from you like that.
I'd be like, Pooya, I'm sorry I tried to stop the voting, but I can't. I got to go with Donna. Like, we got to go to the end. So that is where we end up.
Well, that's when I super befriend you if you vote me. Like, super befriend you, like get invited over to like sleep over at yours. And then when you're asleep, I find the check they gave you and I burn it so neither of us get money. We go down together, Brian Scally. I refuse.
Not guessing middle names anymore. Okay. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's a fair move on your part.
Listen, we are co-hosts. If I go down, you go down with me. These are the rules. These are the rules.
I would expect nothing less.
Exactly. All right, Brian Christopher Scally, thank you so much. This has been a great podcast. Let the people know, where can they find you? What are the projects you have brewing at the moment?
People can find me on Twitter at Brian_Scally or on Twitch at twitch.tv/bscally. I am going to be wrapping up the coverage of Love Island Games. Very, very fun season. The finale's on tonight. Oh, it's so fun with Kirsten a little bit later this week, but we're gonna have a good time. Try to let a little bit of the social media run in, roll in, and some of the reaction. So very excited to talk about the final week of Love Island Games. Also talking about this season of the Challenge 39 with Matt Lagori over on the Free Agents podcast. So people should check that out. And I'm going to be guesting over on the Lonely Boys podcast talking about Gossip Girl, the OG series. So if you're a Gossip Girl fan, go over there.
There we go. Thank you so much, Scally. Great job as always. Y'all can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Pooya. That's where I am when I'm not podcasting. So if you come through and say hi, I would appreciate it. Podcast this week, I had Sasha back on with me to talk about 90 Day Fiance Season 10. We recorded that earlier today. That should be out maybe overnight, maybe tomorrow at some point. You can find it in your feeds. And other than that, I'm currently talking Masked Singer with Liana, but this week, because of Thanksgiving here in the U.S., it will be, they're playing a rerun. So we'll be back next week with some Masked Singer. And same thing for 90 Day Fiance the other way. I'll be back with a new podcast next week. But myself and Scally talked about the last 3 episodes of The Other Way last week, which you can check out if you haven't yet. And that's about everything we've got here for you. Of course, if you'd like to leave a rating and review for this podcast, feel free to go ahead and do so over on robswebsite.com/traitors. That's TRAITORS. And still feed in its infancy. All ratings and reviews are appreciated. 5 stars especially make us extra happy. So please feel free to go ahead and do so if you haven't already. But otherwise, thank you so much for listening to this podcast, for checking us out. If you're here live, thank you so much for staying up late night to discuss some Traitors with us. We appreciate it. We hope you all have a great week. Those of you that celebrate Thanksgiving this week, enjoy. We'll be back next week from Traitors Manor to talk more smack. But until then, take care. Have a good one. Bye.